This episode contains mentions of mental health struggles, anxiety, depression, and suicide. Listeners who may be sensitive to these elements, please take note. Hi, I'm your host and and welcome to Soundtracks, the podcast where we share the personal connections we have with music and how these connections inform our experiences, our memories, and our emotions. Thank you for coming today, thank you for being here, and thank you for trusting me with your time. Today, I have a special guest with me today. This is a friend of mine. This is the first time we're meeting, and just before this, we spent like an hour just chatting, like a very long hour chatting, and it was so great to kind of sit down and get to know him. So this is Misan. Introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Misan. I hate introducing myself. I'm 26. I grew up in Nigeria. I moved to the UK when I was 15. I've lived here on my own ever since. Went to boarding school, went to uni. My friends call me the least finance bro of all time because I'm actually a creative in my actual free time. So I work in finance, but I spend a lot of my time doing just like creative pursuits or supporting other people's creative pursuits. And I love music, which is what obviously ended up with us being here. I'm listening to music all the time. I'm thinking about music. I don't make music, but yeah, I just I love music. I love talking about music, and I'm very happy to be here.
So when you say creative pursuits, like what is your creative outlet?
So that's a heavy question. There's a lot of sort of thinking. So even my creative pursuits are slightly academic. I do a lot of reading. Obviously, we've chatted about video essays and books and all that thing. I'm reading all the time. I've started doing sort of mini book reviews. So they're just like Instagram stories where I write a little essay on a book I've read and like a recommendation. I also like support, or I'm not part of the team, but I'm part of a creative collective called Nourishment. So we go to galleries, exhibitions. We just consume art and support like Black British creatives. I also I'm painting again, which is like just for fun. It's not really like a thing. Also fashion. I've started like tracking my fits because I wear some interesting things for someone who works in corporates. And yeah, I'm just embracing exploration. This year is the year of exploration. I don't do New Year's resolutions, but that's what this year is. And yeah, also yeah, just lots of thinking, lots of talking. I have a couple of creative projects in the works that may or may not work out. But yeah, I'm being informed by the people I'm in community with that I'm a creative and I need to embrace that. But I don't really know what that means yet. So we're figuring it out.
So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to have like an icebreaker type situation where I give you a word and you give me a song, whatever the song is for whatever reason. It doesn't have to be, the word doesn't have to be in the lyrics per se. It can just be like whatever feeling it evokes to like in you and therefore the song, right? And your first word is York.
York. Wow, that's a good one. That is tough. There's so many songs I associate with York. I know what it is. It's that Chance the Rapper album.
Coloring book.
Coloring Book, yeah. I mean, it's the whole album, but specifically, it is How Great / I can't remember the second bit, but the one with J Electronica. Yeah, How Great by Chance the Rapper.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Why?
Because it reminds me of second year in York as a student, cycling around the uni, like living with friends before our like living situation fell apart. Cycling to Fulford to see my other friends, or just like the album had just come out. It was summertime. It was fun, and like life got hard in terms of uni and also interpersonal relationships afterwards. And it's like this was like a self-contained, really enjoyable part of my university experience. And like overall, I enjoyed my university experience. Life happens. But when I look back, I'm like, oh, like sweet memories of, uni and whatever. And I met, like, that was the time period when I met the two of my closest friends. And we became like a trio and we sort of bonded. It was that time period. So it's like memories of already existing friendships that are very wholesome and happy, and then new friendships and just like, yeah, you've got your whole life, well, your second year uni, you've got basically your whole life ahead of you. And yeah.
That excitement,
So, yeah.
that newness.
Yeah.
Why do I feel like then coloring book came out? Was it uni times? When was it? 2006? 16?
2016. I started uni 2015. So 2016.
16. Yeah. I think I got it from like a friend of mine, and I hadn't heard of Chance the Rapper before that.
Yeah.
Like properly sitting down and listening to him, and just for me it's same drugs. We don't
do the same drugs no more. We don't do the same drugs. What a tune.
And you're just sitting there and you're like, and I also, for me, it's Chance's like storytelling.
Yeah.
And that song for me, I don't know, it's set, like, it's very obviously talking about drugs.
Yeah.
But I see, like, for me, it feels very childlike, the
Yeah.
song itself. Probably because there was a version of the song where you did it with the Muppets.
Yeah.
And the Muppets kids, like, right? But for me, they just evoke such, like, don't forget the happy
Yeah.
thoughts.
All you need is happy thoughts.
I love that song.
The other thing about How Great is it links to growing up, because like my parents are Christian. I grew up with that song, like
How great
in church, or like the original versions. Like my parents like basically only listen to gospel music, and also like my own feelings on religion starting to evolve, and like I had a church in York and everything, but I really started shifting away from how I felt about religion growing up in that time period. So but I still love gospel music. So it's like a good example of that. Like I don't know, it feels like that dichotomy.
Transition
Yeah.
of I grew up Catholic.
Yeah.
But my mom's Lutheran, my dad's a Catholic one. And so for me, like, religion and God has been there my whole entire life. But obviously as an adult, you kind of pick and choose, right?
Yeah.
You decide what it is that you feel works for you. And I'm a very much people might not like this, like a very pick and choosy Christian. Like for me, the things that I think, the Bible says that we should do, that I'm like, oh wait, cool, that's fine.
Yeah.
That goes with the way I see life and the way that I but there's some very like hard fast things I'm just not willing to do or willing to think about. And I think that's where the debate between like spirituality and like religion come, where I feel like religion in itself is very can be very confining and goes against your better instinct as a human being, as a human animal. And whereas spirituality is very much like can exist within that realm of you being a human with functions, and you know what I mean. So that's kind of, for me, I'm still very like, God, and I pray. I haven't been to church in the longest time, but I don't think that for me is like such a bad thing because I do it at home. I'm
It's a personal
it's
relationship.
exactly. And I've seen, or I continue to see, how the church has done so much harm, especially for people in my life, like personally, people in my life, not a far away person, like literally my aunts, my cousins, people I love, and the distraction that the church can bring. So that's where for me, I sometimes have problem with religion, but spirituality, and I feel like Christianity goes beyond it being a religion.
Yeah, no, religion is just an interesting topic in general. I don't think we have the time to go
We
into
do not,
that.
we do not. Your next word is masculinity.
Ooh, that's a good one. Okay, I'm gonna pick one that might come up again. It's Last Year by Alt J. It's a very sad song. So for context, for people who may not have heard it, it's a song about suicide. And it's him talking about his year. So there's two
January,
people.
yeah.
So in January, February, March, blah, blah, blah. And at the end he dies. And then his, like, so my understanding of the song, my understanding is then his like partner comes on and basically talks about, if it's stones for your pocket, I've picked some for you to hold you down, like, because he jumps in the river and drowns. So yeah, sorry, bit heavy. But the reason it makes me think of masculinity a lot is because I've had my own sort of significant struggles with my mental health, and a lot of those struggles have been rooted in my concept of masculinity, and my understanding of self. And masculinity as a concept in general makes me sad, because I feel like it's done a lot of harm to everyone, regardless of your gender. It's like when people say like, "Oh, men should be feminists because we all suffer under patriarchy." It's true, But that song makes me feel a lot of things. But it makes me feel a sense of like loss and sadness, and in a lot of ways, I tie that to my masculinity, and I tie that to the harm that just being a man has done to me as a man. And there's a sense of like, every time that song ends, there's a sense of like, you don't want to be the one singing it, and so you have to challenge the things that are causing you hurt. And masculinity is just one of them. So yeah,
it's constricting, and I think that when we think about the patriarchy, especially as women, we sometimes get really bogged down about like what it's doing to us and how it constrains us. As a black female, like that woman, I function in that patriarchal society where sometimes in the grand scheme of things, I'm seen at the bottom, and therefore I must crawl my way up, and it's like a very constraining kind of place to be. And I think sometimes if you don't talk to men, or you don't kind of understand what it is like for them, because everyone gets born into it, right? We're all born into it, and some of our actions kind of reinforce the system, but in many ways we're all just trying to survive it. And it's a very damaging system, because I can understand, like, when I think of things as old as gender roles, how suffocating that can be for a man, right? How when you're seen as the person who needs to go out and work and whatnot, and provide, and what does that mean to provide, and how much of you does that take? There's a thing that I have to do because I'm a man. You know what I mean? Like, why and how does that impact you? I think people don't really sit down and be like, this is really damaging. And that's why, like, I'm from Namibia, right? We're about 2 million of us. Most of our suicides are men, right? Which is a national, like a international stat that suicide is more, but for me, in my very little country, and when you see it and you hear it and it's on the news every single time, there's more of like a conversation to be had about like having spaces for men to actually go there and talk, right? Because people, even from an African standpoint, like, only women gossip, men don't gossip, men don't sit down and talk about what's going on in their lives, right? When they come and they hang out with each other, what exactly are you guys talking about, right? When I go and see my friends, my girlfriends, I leave there feeling, you know what I mean? I've said what I had to say, right? And I feel like I've been heard, right? And I feel like sometimes we don't make that a priority for our men and our boys, to have community where it goes beyond kicking a ball, it goes beyond playing PlayStation. It's like, what's up with you? And from like what I've heard from you about your friendships, you guys have that, and it's a beautiful thing to hear about.
We do. Thank you. But it's an interesting one because some of those conversations still happen within frameworks that are traditionally masculine. So, like, as a joke, we were talking about how we have therapy FIFA, because people will come to my house and we'll play FIFA. And I live alone, so they can be as loud as they want. Yeah, or you can, don't break my TV or my controllers, but otherwise, do whatever you want. And often we'll end up having really, really deep conversations about life, about parents, about relationships, about, love and happiness and masculinity and all of these things. But the actual activity we're doing in the background, if we're playing FIFA or just like doing whatever, is still coded as masculine. And it's like the spaces can be there to have those conversations. It doesn't need to be something that's structured and like we're taking men out of their comfort zone. I think the actual main thing in my mind, when challenging some of these things, is how we're socialized as men. So that's from when you're little. You know, the concept of like boys don't cry, or boys will be boys when you do something shitty. And it's unlearning those things, countering those things, allowing boys to be emotional as they grow into men, talking about mental health, talking about removing the stigma of having poor mental health, you know, talking about how it's okay to feel sad, it's okay to feel angry, it's okay to feel your feelings. And I think, you know, as a man who's, this is a conversation I had with one of my closest friends about what it means to unlearn misogyny and like toxic masculinity. And the conclusion we came to is you can't. It's the same risk as of doing harm as you have with like white liberals who are like, I have unlearned racism. Right. And it's like, cool, you have unlearned this, you've done the work. Respect. Like,
Yeah.
you know, cool, you've done it. But if you don't continue to do that work, if you don't continue to reinforce, you will then actually have more potential to do harm because you know how to navigate these spaces, but you still have the inherent sort of capacity to be racist or capacity to be misogynistic or whatever. And so it's this idea that like we have to socialize people from the beginning, not to internalize these things, but as men who are already men who live in a patriarchal society, because we all live in this society, we have to continue to do the things that will help us to avoid those patterns of behavior, to help us to unlearn, to help us to support. You know, it's like I cry a lot. I'm a crier. And
Same.
I never feel, with my close male friends, I don't feel shame in just breaking down. I don't feel shame in being sad. And I know that some people have a higher level of comfort with certain emotions than others. And I navigate that by navigating my friendships like you would just normal relationships. But there are male friends I have who have just, I've broken down and they've just held me, you know. And it takes time, it takes building trust, it takes respect, it takes feeling safe. And I want that for everyone who identifies as a man who's, you know, because we all need people in our corner, you know. And I think, yeah, we need to have those conversations, but to come back to the question, we don't need actual structured spaces to do it. We just need to give people the tools to have the conversations in the first place.
Being able to verbalize it and being able to say, put your feelings into words, I think. Yeah, I get that. But I really like the idea of like doing it in the spaces where you feel comfortable. I think sometimes people find it intrusive or very difficult to go to therapy and sit down with essentially a stranger and kind of just out it. And for me, with my kind of history with therapy, I started going to therapy when I was in my first time in therapy. I was in matric. Grade 11 or matric, can't remember. And it was like school mandated therapy because I was having really, really shit time. And my therapist was this white woman and I did not trust her. I didn't trust her. I was like, what are you going to tell me about me that I don't know? But just being able to, for me, because I was forced, right? I wasn't paying out of my pocket. My parents were paying and I had to go. And so I was there and I had to kind of do this thing twice every week and therefore forced to build trust.
Yeah.
But when you're an adult and it's not mandated, you don't have to go, you want to go and you pay for it yourself, you kind of make the cost benefit analysis of like, do I, you know? But you still want to have a place where you can go and like have people listen to you, because there's a very big difference between like listening and hearing. Listen to you and have a community of people trying to like help you navigate around like your shit. And friendships are a very important part to do that. And I feel like with some of the men in my life, I don't think they have that. I don't think that they have the space where they just go and be with friends in a way that's not performative.
Yeah.
And in a space where you can just be kind of vulnerable. and like talk about your stuff. And that's the same thing with you. I just want people to have that space, be it going to actual therapy or like just having friends sit down and talk to about that.
Yeah. I think the other thing that comes to mind just listening to you is that like it doesn't really matter what the gender of the people you're in community with is. Like if you're a man who that space is mainly your female friends, and that's okay. You know, it doesn't have to be this is a space for men by men, it's only men. I do, however, I say that and then I counter myself by saying I do think that male only spaces are important because just as men can internalize patriarchy and toxic masculinity, so can women. And I do think sometimes there's more pressure to perform masculinity in spaces that aren't only male.
100%.
So there is an element of, you know, the space has to work for the person or the people in it. And, you know, if you don't feel comfortable having people of a different gender in your spaces, then, you know, that's okay. You can create a space that works for you, with your friends, with your community. You know, it's not, it has to be what works for each group of people, for each person. Or you can have multiple spaces. I have multiple spaces. I have spaces where it's just me and my boys. I have spaces where I'm the only mask person there. I have spaces where it's just a mix. My wider friendship group is a mix, although I'd say it's actually mostly women. Yeah. And also there's the element of like, a lot of people say, oh, men and women can't be friends. Or my favorite quote on sort of male female friendships is from a book. I'm gonna kind of butcher it, but it's essentially that a man and a woman alone in the dark at night will not be reciting the Paternoster. And it's like, no, men and women can be friends, and they should be.
They should be.
You should have friendships with just lots of people with different backgrounds, different dynamics, different opinions, you know, because that helps you broaden your horizons. It helps challenge things that you may have. If you're in community with the same people your whole life, you will never challenge your ideas. You will never challenge the things you've internalized, and then you'll just never grow. You know, so there's the element of friendships and relationships that can also help to challenge sort of masculinity or the negative parts of masculinity, because there are beautiful things about masculinity. There's beautiful things about being a man, just as there's beautiful things about femininity. It's not all negative. But we should challenge the negative aspects of it. And even the positive aspects, we should challenge and say, how do we make this more positive? How do we make this, you know, something that more men can embrace? How do we make this? How do we make this that? So yeah, it's I'm going to stop ranting now.
I think sometimes just talk like the masculinity and the femininity, because I feel sometimes when I'm in a space where I'm listening to other women speak about their stuff, right, when there are no men around, because I have this thing where if I'm with men, right, cool, we're mixed badge, and there are men who are overpowering, right, and I don't know if you've seen those kind of personality red, green, blue test things. So I'm like fully a red the whole time, right? But I'm even more so a red when they're like men, and they just bring out, like, if another red man is there and they decide they're gonna be overpowering, I turn that shit all the way up, right? Whereas sometimes there's a point where I can't even relate to the women because I'm trying to fight this man the whole time he's there. Like I used to have a friend who dated this guy, and we'd play like 30 seconds, right? And he was so aggressive. Two of us had to either be on the same team or one of us shouldn't be playing. And I always dialed up the when he was around. And I always I tend to do that a lot. And sometimes like when we are in spaces together, so when I find men who are like overpowering, I cannot help but be like, you're not going to do this. Especially when there are women around who are not as vocal, I guess, as I am. I dial that red all the way up and we are fighting, you and I. Yeah. In this space. So saying that sometimes it's like men or even women are more able to like come into more themselves when the other parties aren't there. Because I feel like sometimes men feel like they should overpower women. So when women aren't there, I feel like they're more able to be themselves, right? Same thing with women. I'm trying to dial up the femininity when men are around versus when they're not there. having to play with both sides. And when you leave an environment where you feel safe enough to kind of interrogate both those sides of yourself, you can leave that and go in a space where there's everybody and be able to navigate your emotions and your experiences better, just because you've had a conversation with yourself about why is it that you're acting this way, and how you can kind of channel that in a more helpful way. We're going to move on to Song of the Week.
Yes.
My song of the week this week is Ulele by Heavy K, Something Soweto. Particularly the song, because I just came from home, like I came home in December, and my sister, Chipo, the one who's after me, was really into my piano. That's like her stuff, right? And it just, for me, reminded me of a much like, I had a really good holiday. I was home for like 9 days or something. And it was just fun. It was light. It was like trying my best to be on my best behavior. There's like three girls, and what happens is we clash a lot, and sometimes it's dumb shit. So I'm like, you have 9 days here. You don't have time to be angry and annoyed, right? Because we cannot talk for 2 days, and that's a thing that we've done before, but there's no need for that. Yeah. And I think that that's something that I've kind of learned during this holidays. I can really get over things quickly. Like I can and I should. And for me, the song is just like very summary. It reminds me of being at home and just being with my family, and it's also just like super vibey as well. So yeah. That's song of the week.
And it's good. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed listening to it. Also, I'm learning. I should say this about my career, but I'm learning to DJ.
Nice.
So it might be going in my little Am I Piano set list. Although I'm not going to do Am I Piano when I DJ, because I should leave that to other people. I'm going to stick to my Altair bag. That is where my roots are. I'm an Altair boy. Like one of my friends keeps replying to my like fit photos on Instagram, just being like Altair ? Like nothing else, just Altair. I'm like, yes, that is me. I am alternative. My song of the week was "The Less I Know, the Better" by Tame Impala. Mainly just because it's a fantastic song, but also it's interesting because I've had like a few people in my life sort of come up to me and say, "Oh, do you hear this? Do you hear that?" Blah, 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 about people I just don't really interact with anymore or want to interact with, and I was listening to it and I'd never really listened to the lyrics, and I was kind of like, kind of get it, like. I just don't need to know. I just don't need to know what's going on. I don't want to know. I don't want to see. I don't want to hear. I don't want to. Yeah, the less I know, the better. And also it's just a really vibey song. It's just like very high energy, and I'll be like jamming at work, and I'll just be bopping along.
It's very easy to not listen to the lyrics and just listen to the.
It's such a good song,
and it's also very like a walking song, if that makes sense, like a strutting, like you can just like really like I own the street to the song.
So every day after lunch when I'm in the office, I go for a walk because it's supposed to help your digestion and prevent you getting diabetes. And that song, "Staying Alive" by the Bee Gees, like all of those songs with that sort of just like, if my life was a movie and like you were doing a walking montage of me in a good mood. Perfect songs. Like I will start strutting "Staying Alive" in St. James's Park. Like just full on, walking past the bloody pelicans, just strutting my stuff, hip swinging, everything. Like it's just a great song. So
It is a very good song. So now we're going to go into your soundtracks, right? Yes. So the songs that you love, you have a story to tell about. So you gave me quite a few. Yes. We're going to do like 5 or 5.
Okay, great song. This is Dog Eat Dog Part 2 by Odumodu Black, Cruel Santino, and Bella Shmurda. This song reminds me of summer.
Okay.
So as we were kind of discussing before, last year was a little bit tough for me in terms of my mental health, in terms of the end of a pretty long-term relationship, and a few other things. And this song, actually another song that's in the pot, so if it comes up, it's going to be the same story, reminds me of summer. So it reminds me of, like, just being outside with my friends. Like, I wasn't going out, trying to just be in the streets because I was still sort of pseudo in a relationship. It just reminds me of literally just, like, going to like different events. It reminds me of just like running joke in the car. It reminds me of also I have a playlist called I be kicking niggas off the aux. That's the name
I'd
of
be
the playlist.
kicking niggas off the aux.
That's the name of the playlist.
Uh-huh.
And it's because it became a running joke that every motive we go to, if there's not an actual DJ, I will end up on the aux. And this was one of the first songs I would play. And I started saying to people, this is my litmus test for whether you know good music. Because it's such a good song. It's Altair. It's like, I love Santino. Like, I've been listening to Santi from Jump. I'm a real Altair boy, like I said before. And yeah, this song just encapsulates a lot of the fun I had in the summer, whilst sort of being upbeat enough to not let me think about some of the more negative things. And yeah, so that's why this is it's still like my favorite song right now, or one of my favorite songs right now. And also it reminds me of particularly just like hanging out and making new connections particularly through music. So I went to my friend's house, had a little dinner party. A guy was on the aux. He started talking about how he doesn't like Afrobeats. I said, I'm going to remove you from this aux expeditiously. Someone else turns up, a friend of my friend who I hadn't met before, and I'm just playing music. And I was playing this song, and she goes, can you please make me play this on my birthday party? And I'm inviting you to my birthday party.
Oh, nice.
And so it's like, I made lots of new friendships just through music, my enjoyment of music, going to things so I can listen to new music. And this song kind of encapsulates that. And then we've got, Heaven's Light and Hellfire from The Hunchback of Notre Dame. I remember saying to you, they go in a pair.
Yeah.
So these, again, last year, a lot of these are sort of, kind of on reflection on the past year. These remind me of a few things. So one is Heaven's Light reminds me of love. And it reminds me of love in a very bittersweet way, because when I used to listen to the song when I was in a relationship, I used to think about my partner. And I used to think about how, the song reflected some of the ways I felt loved by my partner, by my ex-partner. And then we broke up. And then that felt like Hellfire. It felt like the song, because it felt like... So for context, I'm assuming most people have seen The Hunchback. But these two songs essentially encapsulate the whole movie and essentially encapsulate the book as well. Because my reading of The Hunchback is there is a lot to do with how love can be dangerous and toxic and harmful. And when I say love in air quotes, the love that Frollo feels for Esmeralda is such that he ends up destroying himself and her. And Hellfire talks about that. It talks about his sort of lust and his need to own her.
Possession. There's so much possession. Yeah.
And it also, it links to societal themes about the church and masculinity and gender dynamics and male-female hegemony and all of these things. I just threw a lot of sociology buzzwords out there. And so Hellfire for me was almost like this sort of, I really want to be with this person, but also like it feels really unhealthy now. And how do I navigate that? How do I process that? And like on reflection, it hits even harder. And then Heaven's Light has taken on a new meaning because it's gone from, this is how this person used to make me feel, and this is how this person makes me feel now. And now it's Heaven's Light feels like the love that my friends have poured into me. And like my last Instagram post, like someone's making fun of me for the caption because it was like, half of it was in Latin, and then the other half was in English. And it was, so the Latin bit said, it's Jonah 2 and 3. So it's out of the depths of hell cried I, and you heard my voice. And the English bit says, or on how being loved is good for your health. And that's kind of that's how the dichotomy of the two songs make me feel. It's because like I was in such a dark place, and my friends and my family loved me out of it. And I'm not fully out of, mental health struggles and all of that, but like they basically loved me back to life and enjoying life and being a semi-functioning human being again. And so those two songs, they hold a lot of weight. And also like The Hunchback is my favorite Disney musical. I literally just I just read the book, for the whole book for the first time, and it's just amazing. So that's that pair.
So hold on, just quickly. Speaking more about like being loved back to life, right? Like I said, I went home in December, and I was reflecting, and I also made an Instagram post about it when I came back. And I spoke about how like I went home and I realized where I learned how to love.
Yeah.
Right. I'm a very passionate person. I love hard and I love deeply, and I'm very like unapologetic about how I love. And it was like, where do you get this from? Like my ability to just really open up to people and have people come into my life, and just like I'm a very open person. Where did I learn that? And I learned that at home, where like my parents, I've seen my sisters, I've seen my friends who I grew up with, I've seen my grandmother, and it's just like this is where this comes from, like being able to be such a loving person and a trusting person really comes from there. And it's like a safety there, like if something does go really really left, I know I can go home, and I know that I'll be fine, and I'll be like put back together in certain ways. I had a really bad dream the other day. I don't want to talk about it. I had a dream that Taku died, right?
Oh, no.
Oh, it was the worst. And I woke up in such a panic. I was so distraught. And he was right there. I think I woke up, I was like, you're here, you're here, you're here. And I was like, if something like that happens to me, I'm packing up, I'm going home, right? That's the first thing. There's no way this weather's gonna nurse me back to life. I have to go back to my mother. Yeah. And I know that like, if that ever happens, touch all the wood. Where's the wood? There's on the floor. I will somehow find to be okay, because I have love around me, and that love will do its best to kind of usher me through this soul shattering event. But I know I'm gonna be okay, and I know that I have love. And so whenever like shitty things happen and I'm having a really bad day, I'm always like reminding myself like, you have so much love in your life, and you have like physical proof of it in like the way that you are right now. But like these pictures, these photos, all that stuff. Like I'm away from home like all the time, like a year, and I go home and whatnot. But like it's always there, and I always feel it, and I'm always like really lucky that my family and I are super close. Like I speak to my dad every few days, and I speak to my dad. He calls me, talk about nothing, like in 3 hours about nothing, and he just wants to talk about something. And I really appreciate that. And like that's like, it's always a good place like to reflect, how did you get to who you are? What experiences made you this way? And for me, I was just like, shit, this is where I learned how to love, and this is where it pours from.
Yeah, and I think like piggybacking off that, I don't know if I can emphasize enough how important platonic love is. One of my best friends said something to me that killed me. He was like, as your friends, we will give you everything. We will happily give you everything and anything in the world. Except sleep with you. We're not going to do that. But we will give you everything because we love you. For no other reason. You don't owe us anything. You didn't earn our love. We love you because we love you. We love you for who you are. We love you because you're our friend. We love you because you're part of our life. And yes, you do bring things into our lives that we are grateful for and we enjoy, and you bring us joy and happiness, all of these things. But we just love you, and that like you being you is enough. That broke me. But like reflecting on it and reflecting on the meaningfulness of those songs as well. It's like when I had a full breakdown in October, complete breakdown. My friends took turns sleeping on my couch, like to make sure I was okay. Had people calling me all hours of the day, had people turning up at my house. People that didn't even know what happened, they just knew that something was wrong. Would just be like, I'm in East London, I'm coming to your house. And like looking at my relationship with my parents, my family, and the model of love I learned from them is very different to the model of love that my friends exhibit. And it's a different type of selflessness. And I look at sort of all the things that happen in my life, the good, the bad, the whatever, and I just think I don't deserve these people and I don't deserve this love. But that doesn't matter. That's something I'm having to accept. It doesn't. You don't get what you deserve in life, good or bad, because life is life. You can deserve horrible things and nothing ever happens. Like the wicked will not be punished a lot of the time.
Oh, 100%.
And also you don't always deserve the good things that happen. They just happen. The good people in your life are there because they're in your life. They're there because they care about you. They're there because for whatever reason they love you. And platonic love is so important. We talked about masculinity and sort of those dynamics, and that is a really important aspect of that. It's just the love your friends have for you and the love they pour into you, and that can help you navigate and unlearn a lot of things. I just wanted to emphasize just how important that is.
And I think that sometimes people feel like, I have a friend of mine, a really, really good friend of mine, and she's a very, like, not to herself, but she's very good at, but like, she doesn't say much. And my sister as well, also, like, doesn't say much, but like very much, oh, I don't want to burden people. Why not? Burden me. That's why I'm here. Do all of that. Like, I don't want to disturb me. Like, what do you think I'm here to do? I'm not a decoration. Like, what is it that, like, you're wanting from me? Because I feel very, very happy to be like, hey, man, I'm not doing well. Right? I need help today. Right? And I want people to be able to do that. Like, oh, I don't want to be a burden. Why not?
Yeah. My friend sent me a thing, because I do the whole, I feel like I'm burdening everyone thing a lot. Sent me a thing that was like, I didn't want to burden you. My brother in Christ, you're my reason for living. Like, I am here because, like, my purpose in life is to love you, is to be here with you, to be here for you. Obviously, there's more to life than just being someone else's support network.
But I get it.
It can be a really big part of your identity and of your friendships, and I think it's important to know that relationships are give and take, and there's times that you will need someone, there's times someone will need you, and it's about knowing how to be there for them, and also trusting them that they also know what their limits are. They know when they can't help, and they know who to point you to. They know what to do. That's a lesson I've had to learn, because it's really easy to overstretch yourself in the pursuit of a selfless ideal of love, and then you start causing harm to the person that you think that you're helping or you think you're supporting, because you don't have the capacity, and you start laying them down. And so there is a lot. There's a whole module. We need to do another episode just on concepts of love.
That's how this is, yeah.
Okay. And my next one is it's a Latter Core by the Abbey of I can't remember what Abbey is, but it's a Latin, it's a mass. Bearing in mind that I'm not Catholic for one thing. I'm not religious. I hope my parents never listen to this, because they don't know. But this just makes me cry. So I have a whole playlist called Kyrie Eleison, and it's just like Orthodox, like Catholic, Eastern Orthodox, Byzantine and Gregorian chants and all of this stuff, and it's all religious, and I listened to it all because, so when I was reading The Hunchback, and now I'm reading Les Mis, and Victor Hugo makes, like, he references a lot of biblical stuff, and he references a lot of music, especially in The Hunchback, and there are a lot of Bible verses that sort of, especially the Psalms, that talk about basically what it feels like to have depression. And as a depression haver myself, it felt quite relatable, and I wanted to listen to music, the kind of music that they would have been singing in those parts of the book, those sections of The Hunchback, The Trial of Esmeralda, etc. And so I started just listening to a couple of masses. And also, on the other side, whilst reading, I was also listening to the History of Byzantium podcast. And
What's it called?
the History of Byzantium. And the Hagia Sophia in Istanbul, which used to be a church, it's now a mosque. All of this stuff. And I was curious about what Byzantine choral music sounded like, because there's lots of discussion about the construction of the Hagia Sophia, Alexios Komnenios I, and how he sort of pushed. No, it wasn't Alexios. It was Justinianus, and how he sort of pushed to have it built, and the religious aspects of Eastern Orthodoxy and the Great Schism and all of this stuff. So basically, just a bunch of influences led to me making this playlist of Eastern Orthodox music, Catholic music, and just realizing that I really enjoy a lot of it. This song in particular is just very haunting, and it's just like, it's literally just a bunch of monks singing in mass, and it feels kind of overwhelming. And I sit there with my book and my cup of tea at 11 o'clock when I'm having insomnia, and I just put this on, and it feels like a bit of an out of body experience. Also, like when I was really depressed last year, there was a point when I was like, I should join a monastery. And so there was a bit of like fantasizing of like, if I joined a monastery, I could literally just sing all day and study theology, two things I very much enjoy. So yeah, it's a bit of a weird story with that one, but when you were asking for my songs, I was literally listening to that playlist at work, and I was like, I love this song too much to not include it, but I hope it doesn't come off because I don't know what to say.
No, it's a great song. I think for me, when I heard it, it reminded me of my choir days. I used to be very active in the choir, and we had this one song that like today it still sits with me, Agnus Dei. And I was like, I used to love, and it's like you said, haunting, because I was an alto, and it's like, Agnus Dei. That was fun. But it was also like, it allowed you to, I don't know, there's a darkness about it that just kind of sits with you. And it kind of reminded me of the times when I used to sing that and just feel, I think, nice. I don't even know.
It makes you feel weird, doesn't it? It's like a heaviness to it, and
a haunting almost.
It's like, it's an interesting one. It's a very interesting piece of music. It's one of my favorites. There's another one. It's literally called Kyrie Eleison, which is the name of the playlist, and it's like a bunch of. I think it's a Ukrainian choir singing it, and it literally, like, listening to it, and I'm like, if I heard this with no context at like 3 a.m, I'd start screaming. I would actually jump out the window. But it's so good. It's like, again, it's very haunting, and it's very like, I don't know. I find it hard to even have the words for it. Next one is Van Devorami Otra Vez by Lalo Rodriguez. So another playlist. This one is called La Música de Sudamericano, which is South American music. Don't even know if the Spanish is correct for that one. This song makes me want to dance.
I was saltering around when I was setting up today.
Like, I genuinely was listening to it, and I was like, I should start like doing salsa lessons or something. Because,
right? It makes you want to like.
And it's also weirdly nostalgic for a time period that I don't even have any memories of. But it feels like the start of it. If you've seen One Division, the start of it feels like TV from that time period when they have the intro music, and it's just something different. It's something, and then the sitcom dad walks on and everyone's laughing and all that stuff. It feels kind of like that. It feels like, growing up in Nigeria, you get just random like American TV and South African TV and all this stuff, and it'll be like, just be random old shows, and it invokes some of those memories of like childhood and just being like, why am I watching this? Like what
is
the hell is this? I have no cultural connection to this. I have no cultural connection to this music, but it's so good, and it just makes you want to move. It makes you want to dance. It makes you it's happy. But also, the actual meaning of the song is interesting because Again, I've talked about this a couple of times, but I went through a breakup last year, then we got back together and we broke up again. But that period when we gotten back together, I remember listening to this song with her, and she was like, "Oh, this is really good." She's a producer and a musician, all this stuff. And she's like, "Oh, it's the kind of thing I'd like to sample." But I remember just being curious after a conversation I'd had with her, like looking up the lyrics. And "Ven devour me otra vez," if I remember correctly, it's like "come devour me over again." And I don't know the context in which he's singing it, but like on reflection, post the end of that relationship, I remember just thinking like, this is kind of apt for where we were, because it was like the the second spell took so much out of both of us, and we'd consented to that. We both recommitted to that, and so that song kind of felt like that at the time. And it doesn't really have that same connection now. If it did, I probably wouldn't listen to it, because it's still sort of hurtful. But just like on reflection, I'm like, oh, this is kind of ironic. Like the lyrics of this are ironic for the time period I was in, but doesn't really mean that much anymore. But it definitely did at the time, without me even realizing. So that was an interesting little aspect of the song, a little addition, little addendum. But yeah, so that's that one. And then we're doing one more. Never Let Me Go, Florence and the Machine. I love this song. I love Florence and the Machine. Love the whole album.
Voice.
The whole album. But this song is actually also, like the other one, got sad notations to it. Because when I had a mental health breakdown, I genuinely thought I was done, like with life. Like I was just done. And I remember like literally in the depths of my depression, and the two songs I had on repeat were this, which kind of reminded me of like my childhood. It came out in 2011. I still lived in Nigeria. And I rinsed that album when I was at school. It was this and Last Year by OJ. And I just had the two songs on repeat. And I remember like just a whole day listening to basically those two songs, and just like in my flat, just crying, like just weeping. And it was like I genuinely could not function as a person. And Never Let Me Go feels like, it feels sad, and it also feels safe. I remember I said this to my therapist. I was like, sometimes being depressed feels safe. It feels like that's your safe space. Feels like the sadness and the self-loathing and all of the other things are the safe space. And Never Let Me Go almost like reflects some of those feelings for me of, because when it came out and when I listened to it the first time, I didn't know I had depression. I was like 13. And I grew up in Nigeria. There wasn't the same sort of infrastructure on diagnosis and support and all of those things. I just knew that I felt sad all the time, and I knew that sometimes I would like feel weird and I didn't know what it was. There were panic attacks. I like literally, I remember I had a panic attack and I like passed out.
Me too. I used to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I came around and like, bear in mind I was at home, my parents were at home, and I remember like none of us knew what the hell was going on. And that's the first panic attack I remember passing out. And then it happened a lot afterwards. But Never Let Me Go feels like the narration of my journey of my mental health. And, not so much the Never Let Me Go bit, but the when she's talking about, the arms of the ocean might carry me, and the arms of the ocean deliver me, and all of this stuff. It just, I don't know what it is. That song is just like inextricably linked to that journey, and it just brings up a lot of feelings of like sadness, yeah, but also like, I guess, pride in myself for pushing through, for healing, for doing work, for building relationships, whether they last forever or whether they last a few hours. Like, just for existing, you know. But also even when I kind of thought I can't be asked anymore, like it still evoked feelings of like, okay, well, you're proud of what you've done, like, you're proud of where you are, regardless. So it's a very, sorry, I know all of these are very heavy, but yeah, that's
Just I haven't met anyone who used to have similar kind of panic attacks to me. I used to also just faint.
yeah.
I think the point where I felt like I have to do something about it was when like I used to faint in class so much that like my teacher would be like, just leave her, she'll come to. And I was like, oh my god, how many times? I was like, shit, okay.
Yeah.
Firstly, so I was like, okay, cool. I've been doing this a lot. That was like during the time when I had to like go to therapy and stuff. And that was a lot. I think that like being able to reflect back and be like, you know, I've done this work and I'm able to be like here and kind of live to tell the tale. Something like I pat myself on the back for. But also when you were saying kind of depression feels safe. For me, the word was familiar. I think that
Yes.
there's lots of like safety that comes with familiarity, and I feel like if it's something that you've been kind of going through the whole time, we really love constants as humans, and whenever something is like I'm used to it, it brings me comfort, right? And sometimes it's not the best thing. So people are like in toxic relationships, for example, it feels familiar, and therefore also you feel safe in the unsafety of it because it's familiar to you, and you're able to sit down and be like, at least this is a beast that I know. Right. And for me, the feeling kind of safe in the depression, but really unsafe in the work to get out of it part is what was really difficult, right? Where like I used to go to therapy, it had to be at the end of the day. I can't, because then the whole day is booked off. Like I can't do anything anymore. Like I've done enough. Like this is my job. I've 2 hours where I just did my shit. I can't do that again. So just being in that space was uncomfortable. Whereas being able to go to school or to able to like go on a date while depressed, that's fine because that's familiar. I know this feeling. I know this person. But the me that sits down and kind of like airs the shit out, not so much. I don't know her.
I'm trying to remember what other songs I put in there. I'm gonna look now.
It was Tommy, the
Daylight.
Pher.
Yeah, Fur. So this is by my friend. I want to talk about this one.
Yeah, good.
Okay, so Fur, okay, Marvin. So one of my closest friends. I love this man to bits. That is a happy song.
Okay, yes it is.
So that song reminds me of like Dog Eat Dog of the summer, but instead of just random music, it's literally someone who was in my life through the summer, who I spent the summer with, who I would go out with, we'd have fun, we'd hang out, we'd play video games, we'd talk, we'd rant, whatever. Basically narrating that. And it is so, like, the feelings are feeling. It is so heavy in a positive way. It's just like, yeah, again, it's the whole concept of feeling loved. It's the whole concept of friendship.
Easy.
Yeah, it feels like summertime. It feels like daylight. And it's just like I have a wall of photos in my flat, and post breakup, I took down all the photos of my partner and me and my partner. And I put up photos of my friends. After a while, there was a long period where it looked like a mouth with missing teeth. There were just so many gaps. I put up photos of my friends, and Daylight is actually, like, again, like one of my top 5 songs at the moment, if not it's probably number 1. But like I listen to it and I look, like sometimes I'll glance at my little wall, and there's so many photos from this summer, and it just feels so nostalgic in a good way, and it just makes me so happy.
Yeah, I think he talks about like time with cousins and whatnot, and that's for me some of my happier moments are when we used to do this thing because my dad's Zimbabwean, as I said, and we'd go to Zim every like 2 years, and on our way to Zim would like stop in South Africa at my uncle and his family, and we'd kind of spend time there, And I just had the best memories
Yeah.
with my cousins. Even now, like when they would like alternate, they would come to Namibia and we'll have Christmas in Namibia, and it was just such like much simpler times,
Yeah.
easier times, fun times. Like you had no kind of care in the world. You were just, your job was just an enjoyment. Like
Yeah.
that was just your job.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think about it and I miss that. I think, and also like I try to go home and recreate those same feelings. And bless my family, we try and we really do. Unlike, I think, in contrast to Christmas in the UK, where it's very stressful and
Yeah.
you must have that turkey that no one wants, and mince pies are gross. I don't care what anyone says.
I hate turkey. I love mince pies.
I don't
think
like
it's
them. They're
completely
too sweet.
awful.
Like I eat around them. I eat the crust and I
Yeah.
leave the shit. The
I'm
mince.
like a proper sweet tooth.
The mince. I love sweets, but no man, guys. No, like mince. Turkey. Dry. But like you must have these things in Nima tradition. But for us, it's very like, it's altered, right? We do a braai and we do like this year we did like games, and it was just like the best. And for me, as like a late 20s person, I have like little cousins, who are like 7 thingy, and I go home to not take myself seriously. Like I proper get into the games, and I make it a point. Like I must play. I don't know what you call it in English. It's like a form of like dodgeball. We call it ohaya in my language, where like there's people sitting in the center and then the people like throwing like a really heavy sock.
Oh god.
And we played that at my grandmother's house, and it was just joyful. And so when I heard that song, I just felt like joyful.
Yeah.
Time with family. Summer. As you said.
Such a good song.
That is
Such
a very good song.
I'm very proud of it. Yeah.
Also, the art is great.
It is.
Song cover.
He's doing bits. It's also like it feels like a privilege when someone sends you their music before it's like released and asks you for your opinion. And yeah, no, like he's also just a great person. Like, you want someone to succeed just because they're a good person.
Yeah, they deserve it. And so like to wrap up this episode, I'm gonna ask you like a few, I say spitfire questions, but they don't end up being so. And so you can think they're just like music related questions. You kind of sign off. And this was the first one. The question I always ask is, what is a song you wish you could hear again for the first time?
Ooh, that's a good question. That's a very good question. I'm gonna do one that's a bit special gift. It's a gospel song. I need to figure out who it's by because it reminds me of my brother. So my younger brother has Downs. He's possibly the most loving person I know. And the song reminds me of him. And I wish I could hear it for the first time and just think about him. I think about him every time I hear it. But I wish I could just hear it again for the first time in the context of thinking about him rather than just hearing it in church or on the way to church or whatever. It's by Donnie McClurkin. And the song's about Jesus, but it reminds me of my brother. So, yeah.
And I also always think about like the gift of like siblings.
Yeah.
And I always like, when I talk about my sisters, I always cry sometimes because like it's such a great thing to know, like from like literally I'm not navigating this thing by myself. Like this weird thing that someone forced me upon, but at least they've given me other people to kind of walk through this thing with. And like, as I was saying, my sisters and I, like this, 3 hands, and there's women, there's emotions everywhere, and that it is what it is. Navigating that with the relationships when we're so very different, but also very, very emotional. And like at the end, even after all that shit, it's just us, bro.
Yeah.
Like it's I'm very comforting to know that it is us, and it's a very capable us. So like I can relate to your love
really
for your brother.
Yeah. No, I love my brother to bits. He's my favorite person ever.